Rachel Hartwell's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had gone white 3 hours ago. The rain hammered against the windshield with such fury that even at maximum speed, the wipers could barely keep up. She had been driving for 7 straight hours through what the radio kept calling the worst spring storm system to hit the East Coast in 15 years, and every muscle in her body screamed for rest. The digital clock on the dashboard read 11:43 at night when she finally turned onto Maple Grove Avenue. Home. The word should have brought relief, but as Rachel pulled into the driveway of the 2-story colonial house, a cold knot of unease tightened in her stomach. Every single window was dark. Not even the porch light had been left on for her. She sat in the car for a moment, rain drumming on the roof, staring at the house she had been paying the mortgage on for the past 4 years. Derek's car was gone. So was Brandon's truck. The driveway was empty except for her modest sedan, its engine ticking as it cooled. Rachel grabbed her laptop bag and overnight case from the passenger seat, pushed open the car door, and immediately felt the cold rain soak through her blazer. She ran to the front door, fumbling with her keys, and finally stumbled inside, dripping water onto the hardwood floor of the entryway. "Derek?" Her voice echoed in the darkness. "Brandon?" Silence. Rachel flipped the light switch. Nothing happened. She tried again, flicking it up and down several times. The power was out. Perfect. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight, casting a thin beam of light across the living room. Everything looked normal. The cheap leather couch Derek had insisted on buying last year, the coffee table with its usual scatter of Brandon's gaming magazines, the discount store curtains that Rachel had always hated, but never had the energy to replace. She walked through the living room toward the kitchen, her wet shoes squeaking against the floor. On the kitchen counter, illuminated by her phone's light, sat a single piece of notebook paper weighted down by an empty beer bottle. Rachel picked it up, angling it toward the light. The handwriting was Derek's, careless and rushed. "Rachel, Brandon and I took off for the week. Needed to clear our heads. You know how it is. The old lady in the back room needs food and water. She's your problem now. We left her meds on the dresser. Don't call us. We'll be back when we're back. D." Rachel read it 3 times, each time feeling a different wave of emotion crash over her. First, disbelief. Then, anger. Finally, something darker. Something that made her hands start to shake. The old lady in the back room, Eleanor Hartwell, Derek's mother, the woman who had moved into their home a year ago after a series of health scares. The woman who, 6 months ago, had suffered a stroke that left her barely able to walk, barely able to speak, barely able to do anything but sit in that wheelchair and stare out the window with vacant eyes. And Derek and Brandon had just left her? Rachel dropped her bags on the kitchen floor and moved quickly through the darkened house, her phone light bouncing off walls as she navigated the familiar path to the back bedroom. The door was closed. She pressed her hand against it, hesitating for just a moment, then pushed it open. The smell hit her first. Unwashed linens. Something sour and organic that made her stomach turn. The room was small, barely large enough for the single bed, the old dresser, and the wheelchair that sat empty in the corner. The curtains were drawn, blocking out what little light came from the street. "Eleanor?" Rachel whispered, sweeping her phone light across the room. There, on the bed. A small form lay motionless under a thin blanket, curled on its side. Rachel rushed forward, her heart pounding. "Eleanor! Oh, God! Eleanor!" She knelt beside the bed and gently touched the older woman's shoulder. The body beneath her hand felt cold, too cold. Rachel pulled the blanket back, gasping at what she saw. Eleanor Hartwell looked like she had aged 20 years in the 3 days Rachel had been gone. Her skin, normally pale but healthy, had taken on a grayish, waxy quality. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Her beautiful silver hair, which she had always kept neat even after the stroke, was matted against her skull with sweat and oil. The nightgown she wore was stained and damp. "Eleanor, can you hear me?" Rachel's voice cracked. She pressed 2 fingers against Eleanor's neck, searching for a pulse. There. Faint, irregular, but there. Rachel grabbed the water glass from the nightstand. Empty. Bone dry. She ran to the bathroom, filled it with tap water, and returned, carefully lifting Eleanor's head. "Come on, Eleanor. Just a few sips. Please." The older woman's eyelids fluttered, but didn't open. Her lips parted slightly, and Rachel managed to get a few drops of water into her mouth. Eleanor's throat worked weakly, swallowing. "That's it. Good. Just a little more." Rachel's mind raced as she tried to process what she was seeing. 3 days. Derek and Brandon had left Eleanor alone for 3 days without food or water. 3 days in a house with no power, no heat, no one to check on her. 3 days to slowly die in this back bedroom while they did what? Went on vacation? Cleared their heads? A wave of guilt crashed over her so hard she almost dropped the water glass. This was her fault. She had known Derek resented having his mother in the house. She had known Brandon treated Eleanor like an inconvenience, something to step around on his way to the refrigerator. But she had gone on that business trip anyway, telling herself it was just 3 days, telling herself they were grown men who could handle basic responsibilities. She had been so wrong. Rachel set the water glass down and pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over the 911 digits. Eleanor needed a hospital. She needed doctors, IV fluids, proper care. Rachel started to press the first number. Then Eleanor's hand shot out with surprising speed and gripped Rachel's wrist. Rachel gasped, nearly dropping the phone. She looked down into Eleanor's face. The older woman's eyes were open now, and they were not vacant. They were not confused. They were sharp, focused, and burning with an intensity that made Rachel's breath catch. "Don't," Eleanor whispered, her voice hoarse but clear, clearer than Rachel had heard it in 6 months. "Please, don't call anyone. Not yet." Rachel stared, her mind struggling to understand what was happening. "Eleanor, you need help. You're severely dehydrated. You could have organ damage. I have to... Listen to me." Eleanor's grip on Rachel's wrist tightened. Her fingers, which Rachel had thought too weak to hold a spoon, now dug into her skin with surprising strength. "I need you to listen very carefully. What I'm about to tell you will change everything. But first, I need you to promise me you won't call for help until I've finished talking. Can you promise me that?" Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs. I don't understand. Eleanor, you've barely spoken 10 words in 6 months. How are you?" "Promise me, Rachel." Eleanor's eyes locked onto hers with laser focus. "Please, I'm asking you to trust me for just 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And then you can do whatever you think is best. But give me 10 minutes first." Rachel's logical mind screamed at her to call the ambulance immediately. Eleanor was clearly suffering from delirium. Dehydration could cause hallucinations, confusion, altered mental states. This was a medical emergency, not a time for conversation. But something in Eleanor's eyes stopped her. Something that looked nothing like confusion or delirium. Something that looked calculated, aware, almost victorious. 10 minutes, Rachel heard herself say. "But if you lose consciousness, or if I think you're in immediate danger, I'm calling 911. No arguments." Eleanor's grip relaxed slightly. A small smile touched her cracked lips. "That's fair. Now, help me sit up. I can't have this conversation lying down like an invalid." Rachel hesitated, then carefully helped Eleanor into a sitting position, propping pillows behind her back. The older woman winced with the movement, but there was a determination in her face that Rachel had never seen before, or rather, hadn't seen in 6 months. Eleanor took the water glass from Rachel's hand and drank deeply, her throat working steadily. She drained half the glass, then set it aside, and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. When she looked at Rachel again, her eyes were even clearer. "What I'm about to tell you," Eleanor said slowly, "is going to sound insane. You're going to think the dehydration has made me delusional, But I need you to hear me out completely before you react. Can you do that?" Rachel nodded, unable to find her voice. Eleanor took a deep breath. "I'm not sick, Rachel. I haven't been sick for 5 months. The stroke was real, yes. 6 months ago, I did have a minor cerebral event, but I recovered, fully. Within 6 weeks, I had regained nearly all my motor function and cognitive ability. My doctor was amazed, called it a miracle." Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. That's not possible. I've seen you. Every day. You can barely lift a spoon. You can't walk without the wheelchair. You don't speak. You just sit and stare." "I was acting," Eleanor said simply. "For the past 5 months, I have been conducting an experiment. A test, if you will. I wanted to see what would happen if people thought I was helpless. I wanted to see who would show their true colors when they believed I couldn't fight back, couldn't tell anyone what they'd done, couldn't defend myself." The room seemed to tilt around Rachel. "You've been faking? All of it? For 5 months?" "Not all of it. The first month after the stroke was real recovery. But once I realized I was getting better, much faster than expected, I saw an opportunity." Eleanor's voice grew stronger with each sentence. "You have to understand, Rachel. I've spent my entire life reading people, making judgments about character. I've built everything I have on my ability to see through facades. But nothing tests a person's true nature like vulnerability. When someone thinks you're weak, when they think you can't hurt them, or expose them or fight back, that's when you see who they really are." Rachel shook her head slowly. "So, you've been watching? Testing us?" "Testing them," Eleanor corrected. "Derek, Brandon, their little social circle. I needed to know the truth about my sons. I needed to see what kind of men they'd become when they thought no one was keeping score." She paused, her expression darkening. "And what I discovered was far worse than I'd feared." "Eleanor, this is crazy. You can't just—" "Can't I?" Eleanor's voice sharpened. "I'm a 72-year-old woman, Rachel. Do you know what happens to people my age when they show weakness? We get shuffled off to nursing homes. We get our finances taken over. We get declared incompetent. We disappear. I needed to know if my own sons would protect me or prey on me. And now I know." Rachel stood up, her legs shaky. "I need to process this. This is too much. You've been lying to everyone for months." "I've been protecting myself," Eleanor interrupted. "And in the process, I've gathered information, evidence, proof of things you can't imagine. And that's why I need your help, Rachel. Because in 3 days, my sons have shown their hands completely. They've abandoned me to die. They've left evidence of their intentions in ways they never would have if they thought I was aware. And you, walking through that door tonight, soaked from the rain, exhausted from a 7-hour drive, and still the first thing you did was come check on me. You've shown me everything I needed to know about who you are." Rachel felt tears burning her eyes. "They left you to die. They actually—" Her voice broke. "How could they do this?" "Because they want my money," Eleanor said flatly. "They think I'm worth about $300,000. A modest retirement fund, the equity in a little house upstate, maybe some savings bonds. They're waiting for me to die so they can split it and finally live the lives they think they deserve. What they don't know is that I'm worth considerably more than $300,000. And what they definitely don't know is that I've spent the last 5 months recording every single thing they've done to me in this house." Rachel's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the edge of the bed. "Recording? How?" Eleanor smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just cornered its prey. "There's a reason I wanted this particular bedroom, Rachel. This boring little back room with the broken dresser and the ugly curtains. Derek thought I chose it because it was small and out of the way. He thought I was being humble, accepting my reduced circumstances. He had no idea I chose it because it has direct access to something very important. Something I had installed 6 months ago, right after the stroke, when I was still in the hospital and Derek was handling my Affairs. What did you have installed? Eleanor's smile widened. Everything, Rachel. I had everything installed. And in 10 seconds, I'm going to show you. But first, I need to take my real medication. The medication I've been hiding from them. The medication that's kept me healthy enough to pull this off. She gestured toward the old dresser. Bottom drawer, left side. There's a false bottom. Press down on the left corner and slide it toward the right. Rachel moved to the dresser on autopilot, her mind reeling. She opened the bottom drawer, found the corner Eleanor had described, and pressed. The bottom of the drawer slid aside, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside were 4 prescription bottles, a small leather journal, and what looked like a television remote. Bring me the bottles, Eleanor said. I need to take them before I can show you the rest. 3 days without them, and I really am starting to feel weak. Rachel brought the bottles to her. Eleanor opened each one with steady hands that showed no sign of the tremors Rachel had watched her fake for months. She swallowed 4 different pills with water, then took a deep breath. Better. Now, bring me that remote. Rachel retrieved it, studying the unfamiliar device. It looked like a universal remote, but the buttons were labeled with things like main, kitchen, bedroom 1, bedroom 2. Eleanor took the remote and pointed it at the wall opposite the bed. You asked how I've been recording everything. Watch. She pressed a button, and a section of the wall that Rachel had always thought was just ugly wood paneling slid aside with a soft mechanical hum. Behind it was a flat-screen monitor, and beneath the monitor, built into a recessed shelf, was a professional security system with multiple hard drives, timestamps, and a control panel that looked like something from a security company's main office. Rachel stared. What? What is that? That, Eleanor said, her voice filled with grim satisfaction, is how I'm going to destroy them. Every room in this house has been under surveillance for 5 months, and the things I've recorded, Rachel, the things my sons have done when they thought no one could see, when they thought no one could hear, when they thought the senile old woman in the back room was too far gone to understand what was happening around her. She pressed another button, and the screen flickered to life. Let me show you who Derek and Brandon really are. Rachel couldn't move. She stood frozen in front of the monitor as Eleanor cycled through camera feeds with practiced ease. The screen split into 4 quadrants, each showing a different room of the house in crystal clear high definition. Living room, kitchen, the main bedroom Rachel shared with Derek, the guest room where Brandon stayed. The installation was done by a company called SecureWatch Solutions, Eleanor explained, her voice growing stronger with each passing minute as the medication took effect. They specialize in elder care monitoring. I told Derek and Brandon I was terrified of falling when I was alone, that I needed cameras for safety. Medical monitoring, I called it. They were actually enthusiastic about it. Derek even signed all the installation contracts without reading them. He signed contracts? Rachel's voice came out barely above a whisper. Every single page. Eleanor's smile was cold. Legal authorization for a comprehensive home security system, including audio recording in all common areas. Completely legal, completely documented, completely his own doing. The irony is delicious. He thought he was agreeing to install cameras so he could ignore me more easily. Check on the senile old lady from his phone instead of actually walking to my room. What he actually did was authorize his own surveillance. Eleanor pressed another button, and the timestamp on the screen jumped backward. Let me show you what your husband has been doing while you've been working 60-hour weeks to pay the mortgage on this house. The screen showed the living room, dated 3 months earlier. Derek sat on the couch next to a woman Rachel had never seen before. She was younger than Rachel, maybe 30, with long dark hair and the kind of effortless beauty that came from having time and money for personal trainers and salon visits. The woman's hand rested on Derek's thigh. Eleanor turned up the volume. Can't wait much longer, the woman on screen was saying. You keep saying the old bat is going to die soon, but it's been months, Derek. I'm tired of being the secret. Derek pulled her closer, kissing her neck. Trust me, Vanessa. She's deteriorating fast. The doctor said maybe 6 more months. Once she's gone, I inherit everything. Then I can finally do what I should have done years ago. Which is? Vanessa's voice was playful, teasing. Divorce the walking paycheck I'm married to and start my real life. With you. Rachel felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. The room spun. She reached out blindly and gripped the edge of the dresser to keep from falling. Keep watching, Eleanor said quietly. It gets worse. On screen, Vanessa laughed. You really call her that? Walking paycheck? That's all she is, Derek said, shrugging. Rachel exists to pay bills and take care of problems. She's useful. But once I have Mom's money, I won't need useful anymore. I'll need happy. And you make me happy, baby. What about the house? Vanessa asked. In my name, Derek lied smoothly. Well, my name and Rachel's. But in a divorce, I'd get half anyway. Plus Mom's house upstate, her savings, her investments. We're talking at least 300 grand. Maybe more. Enough for us to start over somewhere warm. Maybe Arizona, maybe Florida. Somewhere far from Rachel and her judgmental faces, and her constant nagging about me getting a better job. Rachel made a strangled sound. Eleanor paused the video. The house is not in his name, Eleanor said matter-of-factly. It's in a limited liability company that I own. Derek's name isn't on the deed. Never has been. He's been living in my property for 4 years, thinking he owned it. I let him think that because I wanted to see what he would do with the illusion of security. Why? Rachel turned to face Eleanor, tears streaming down her cheeks. Why would you let this happen? Why wouldn't you tell me? Because 3 months ago, when I recorded that conversation, you were still deeply in love with your husband, Eleanor said gently. You would have defended him, made excuses, believed his lies over my evidence. People in love are willfully blind, Rachel. They have to discover the truth themselves, in their own time. I couldn't force you to see what you weren't ready to see. So you just waited, collected evidence? I protected you, Eleanor corrected. Every time Derek mentioned doing something to harm you, every time he and Vanessa discussed ways to speed up my death or frame you for something, I documented it. I sent copies to a lawyer you've never met. I created a paper trail that would protect you legally if anything happened to me or to you. I wasn't being cruel, Rachel. I was being strategic. Eleanor pressed play again. On screen, the conversation continued. What if Rachel fights the divorce? Vanessa asked. Derek's smile was ugly. She won't have much choice if I play it right. I've been documenting every time she neglects my mother. Every time she goes on a business trip and leaves the old lady in my care. Every time she's too tired to cook dinner or too busy to clean. I'm building a case that she's a neglectful wife and daughter-in-law. When the time comes, I'll make her look bad enough that she'll agree to anything just to end it quietly. Rachel covered her mouth with both hands, fighting the urge to vomit. Eleanor stopped the video. He has no case. His documentation is fiction. But the intent is clear. He was planning to destroy your reputation, take what he thought was his inheritance, and leave you with nothing, all while sleeping with his mistress in the house you pay for. How many times did she come here? Rachel managed to ask. 17 times in the past 3 months, Eleanor said. Always when you were at work or traveling. Never overnight, always careful about the timing. They thought they were being clever. She gestured at the monitor. They didn't realize every kiss, every intimate moment, every conspiratorial conversation was being recorded in high definition with timestamps and audio. Rachel sank onto the edge of the bed, her entire body shaking. I need to see more. Show me everything. Are you sure? Once you see it all, you can't unsee it. Show me. Eleanor nodded and changed the video feed. This one was dated 2 months earlier, showing the kitchen. Brandon stood at the refrigerator, making a sandwich. Eleanor's wheelchair was visible in the frame, positioned near the kitchen table. On screen, Eleanor sat motionless, head tilted to one side, drool visible on her chin. The performance of a stroke victim. Brandon walked past the wheelchair carrying his sandwich. Then, casually, almost absently, he kicked the wheel hard enough to make the chair spin. "Oops," he said to the empty room. "Clumsy me." On screen, Eleanor's head lolled with the motion, but she didn't react otherwise. Brandon laughed. "You know what, old lady? You're pathetic. A waste of space. Derek's an idiot for keeping you here. Should have put you in some crappy state facility months ago. But no, he's too sentimental." He took a bite of his sandwich, chewing while he stared at the motionless Eleanor. "I keep telling him you're probably worth more dead than alive. Life insurance or something. But he wants to wait for the natural causes angle. Wants it to look good." Rachel gasped. "He's talking about killing you." "Keep watching," Eleanor said grimly. Brandon moved closer to the wheelchair. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a prescription bottle. "See these? These are your heart meds. The ones that keep you from having another stroke. The ones Rachel is so careful about making sure you take every morning." He opened the bottle and dumped one pill into his palm. "Want to know a secret? These aren't your real meds anymore. I've been swapping them out for sugar pills for the past 3 weeks. Got them from a diabetic guy I know. They look identical to your real prescription." On screen, Eleanor showed no reaction. Brandon smiled. "At first I was doing it to see if you'd notice, if you'd get sick or something, but you know what? You're so far gone you can't tell the difference." Which gave me an idea. What if you just gradually got worse? What if in a few months you had another stroke? A big one this time, one you don't come back from, and it would all look natural. Just an old lady's body giving out. He popped the sugar pill back into the bottle and shook it. "Derek doesn't know about this. He'd probably be too chicken to go along with it. But me, I'm tired of waiting around for nature to take its course. I'm tired of being broke while you sit on whatever money you've got stashed away. So I'm helping things along. And the beautiful thing is, you can't stop me. You can't tell anyone. You can't do anything but sit there and drool while I slowly kill you." He patted Eleanor's head like she was a dog, then walked away, whistling. The video ended. Rachel stood up so fast the room spun. "Oh my God! Oh my God, Eleanor! He was poisoning you! He was actually—" "Attempting to," Eleanor corrected calmly. "I never took the pills he left out. I knew something was wrong when I saw him handling my medications. So I started hiding my real pills and pretending to take whatever he gave me. I'd palm them, then flush them later. I've been doing that for 8 weeks. You could have died if you'd made a mistake, if you'd accidentally taken the wrong pills. But I didn't." Eleanor's voice was steel. "Because I was paying attention. I was documenting. I was building a case. And now I have video evidence of Brandon admitting to attempted murder. Premeditated, calculated, in his own words." Rachel paced the small room, adrenaline and fury making it impossible to stand still. "We have to call the police, right now. This is evidence of attempted murder. They need to arrest him immediately." "Not yet," Eleanor said. Rachel spun to face her. "What do you mean, not yet? He tried to kill you, and he'll pay for it. But if we call the police now, we only get Brandon. Derek's smart enough to deny knowing about the medication switch. He'll claim Brandon acted alone. Vanessa will disappear. They'll scatter like roaches when you turn on a light. I don't want roaches, Rachel. I want a complete extermination." "What are you talking about?" Eleanor's eyes glittered in the light from the monitor. "I want all of them. Derek, Brandon, Vanessa. I want them to face consequences for everything they've done, everything they've planned, everything they are. And for that, I need more than video evidence. I need them to hang themselves completely. I need them to commit to their worst impulses so thoroughly that there's no way out, no plea bargain, no reduced charges. How do we do that? We set a trap." Eleanor's smile was terrifying in its coldness. "And we use the one thing Derek can't resist as bait, which is The belief that I'm already dead. Rachel's breath caught. You want to fake your death? Not fake it. Let them believe they've finally gotten what they wanted. Let them think their patience has paid off. Let them think they're about to inherit everything. And then, when they're celebrating, when they're making plans, when they're showing their true faces completely. Eleanor leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. That's when we destroy them. Rachel shook her head slowly. This is insane. This is elaborate and vindictive, and they left me to die. Eleanor interrupted, her voice cracking for the first time. My own sons left me in this room without water, without food, without care. They left me to die slowly and painfully so they could go on vacation and have alibis. They abandoned their own mother. So yes, Rachel, I'm vindictive. I'm furious. And I'm going to make absolutely certain they pay for what they've done. The two women stared at each other in the dim light of the bedroom. The monitor still glowed behind them, frozen on an image of Brandon's smiling face. What do you need me to do? Rachel finally asked. Eleanor took a long, shuddering breath. Her expression shifted from cold fury to something softer, more vulnerable. First, I need you to help me get stronger. I haven't eaten in 3 days. I need food, hydration, my real medications. I need a shower and clean clothes. I need to be physically ready for what comes next. Okay? I can do that. Second, I need you to send Derek a message. Tell him I've stopped breathing. Tell him you came home and found me cold and you don't know what to do. Make it sound panicked, confused, helpless. Rachel pulled out her phone, her hands shaking. What if he tells me to call an ambulance? He won't, Eleanor said with absolute certainty. He's been waiting for this moment for 6 months. He thinks he's finally won. He'll tell you to wait, to not do anything rash, to give him time to get home. He'll want to control the situation, control the narrative. And in doing so, he'll give us exactly what we need, which is written evidence of conspiracy, proof that he wanted me dead, instructions that showed depraved indifference to human life. Eleanor's voice hardened again. Everything we need to make sure he spends the next 15 years in a prison cell. Rachel looked down at her phone. Her thumb hovered over Derek's contact. If I do this, there's no going back. Our marriage is over. My life, as I know it, is over. Everything changes. Your marriage was already over, Eleanor said gently. Derek ended it the moment he started planning your future humiliation. This isn't about destroying your life, Rachel. It's about saving it. Saving both our lives. Rachel thought about the video she'd just watched. Derek calling her a walking paycheck. Brandon admitting to attempted murder. The casual cruelty. The calculated betrayal. The complete lack of love or loyalty or basic human decency. She opened the text conversation with her husband and started typing. Derek, something's wrong. I came home and checked on your mother. She's not breathing. Her skin is cold. I don't know what to do. Should I call someone? I'm scared. Please call me back. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. 3 seconds later, the phone buzzed with a response. Don't panic. Don't call anyone yet. I'm in the middle of something. Give me 20 minutes and I'll call you. Do not call 911. Do not tell anyone. Just stay calm. Rachel showed the message to Eleanor. The older woman's smile was grim and satisfied. There it is. Do not call 911. Written instructions to avoid emergency services when he believes his mother is dying. That's depraved indifference. That's potential manslaughter if I actually were dead. He just gave us gold, Rachel. Rachel stared at the message, feeling something cold and hard settle in her chest, where warmth used to be. What kind of person tells someone not to call for help? The kind of person who's been waiting for this moment, Eleanor said. The kind of person who sees an emergency as an opportunity. The kind of person we're going to make sure never hurts anyone again. She reached out and took Rachel's hand. Her grip was strong now, nothing like the weak, trembling touch Rachel had grown used to over the past 6 months. I know this is terrifying, Eleanor said softly. I know you're questioning everything you thought you knew about your life, but I need you to trust me a little longer. Can you do that? Rachel looked at the woman who had been silent and helpless for half a year. The woman who had actually been watching, documenting, planning. The woman who had suffered abuse and neglect and attempted murder with cold, calculated patience. I trust you, Rachel whispered. Show me what to do next. Eleanor squeezed her hand once, then released it. Next, we prepare. Because in approximately 6 hours, when Derek realizes he needs to come home and deal with the situation, he's going to walk into a house that looks very different from the one he left. And by the time he understands what's really happening, it will be far too late for him to save himself. What are we going to do in 6 hours? Eleanor's smile was almost gentle. We're going to take back everything they stole from us, starting with the truth about who I really am. She pressed another button on the remote, and a new image appeared on the monitor. It was a professional photograph, the kind that appeared in business journals and financial magazines. A younger Eleanor, maybe 50 years old, stood in an elegant office wearing a tailored suit. Behind her, visible through floor-to-ceiling windows, was a city skyline Rachel recognized as Boston. The caption beneath the photo read, Eleanor Hartwell, founder and CEO, Hartwell Capital Management Group, managing assets exceeding $2.4 billion across 8 states. Rachel's legs gave out for the second time that night. She collapsed onto the bed, staring at the image. 2.4 billion? Her voice came out as a squeak. That was 12 years ago, Eleanor said calmly. The number's higher now, considerably higher. But you get the idea. The helpless widow living on a modest pension, that was a role I played. The truth is somewhat different. Derek thinks you're worth $300,000. Derek is an idiot who never bothered to actually investigate his own mother's finances. He made assumptions based on the lifestyle I chose to show him. A small house upstate, modest clothes, no flashy cars or jewelry. He saw what I wanted him to see, and he never thought to look deeper. Rachel couldn't process what she was hearing. Why? Why live like that if you have billions? Because money makes people crazy, Eleanor said simply. I've seen it destroy families, corrupt children, ruin relationships. So when I retired publicly 12 years ago, I made a decision. I would live modestly, simply. I would test the people in my life to see who loved me for myself and who loved me for what I could provide. And I would only reveal my true resources to people who proved themselves worthy. And Derek failed that test. Spectacularly. Eleanor's expression hardened. He's not getting a single penny, Rachel. Not now. Not ever. Everything I have will go to people who actually deserve it. People who showed kindness without expectation of reward. People like you. Rachel shook her head frantically. I don't want your money. I know you don't, Eleanor interrupted. That's exactly why you're going to get some of it, whether you want it or not. But first, we have work to do. Derek will call back in approximately 15 minutes. When he does, I need you to sound devastated, confused, totally overwhelmed. Can you do that? Rachel thought about the 7-hour drive through the storm, the dark house, the cold, cruel note. Finding Eleanor abandoned and dying, learning about Derek's betrayal, discovering that her entire marriage had been a lie. I don't think I'll have to act, she said, her voice breaking. Good, Eleanor said, not unkindly. Use that. Let it fuel you, because the next 48 hours are going to require every ounce of strength you have. And when it's over, when Derek and Brandon are facing the consequences of their actions, you're going to need that strength to rebuild your life. What if something goes wrong? What if they figure out what we're doing? They won't, Eleanor said with absolute confidence, because they're too arrogant to imagine that the senile old woman and the walking paycheck could outsmart them. Their own hubris is our greatest weapon. Rachel's phone buzzed. Derek calling. She looked at Eleanor, who nodded encouragement. Rachel answered, letting all her genuine fear and exhaustion pour into her voice. Derek! Oh God, Derek! I don't know what to do. Calm down. Derek's voice was sharp, annoyed. Tell me exactly what you see. And as Rachel described the scene, her voice shaking with very real emotion, Eleanor sat on the bed behind her, stone-faced and calculating, already 3 steps ahead in a game Derek didn't even know he was playing. Derek's voice crackled through the phone speaker, tinged with what someone who didn't know him might mistake for concern. But Rachel heard it now. The slight edge of excitement, the forced solemnity that didn't quite hide the triumph underneath. Listen to me carefully, he said. I need you to stay calm. This is important, Rachel. Don't fall apart on me now. Rachel let out a sob that was entirely genuine. She's so cold, Derek. I think she's been like this for hours. Maybe since this morning. Oh, God. If I hadn't gone on that trip, if I'd been here… Stop, Derek interrupted. This is not your fault. Mom's been declining for months. We both knew this was coming. The doctors told us her recovery from the stroke was unlikely. That was a lie. Rachel had been at every doctor's appointment. The neurologist had been cautiously optimistic. Physical therapy had shown promise. No one had said Eleanor was dying. But Derek needed that narrative now, Rachel realized. He needed the story of inevitable decline to cover what he'd actually done. What do I do? Rachel whispered into the phone. Should I call someone? No. The answer came too quickly. I mean, not yet. Let me think. Where are you right now? In her room. I'm sitting next to the bed. Derek, I'm scared. What if someone asks why I didn't call right away? What if they think… No one's going to think anything, Derek said smoothly. You just got home after a long drive. You're in shock. You found your mother-in-law deceased, and you called your husband first. That's completely normal. Completely understandable. Eleanor made a gesture, pointing at the phone and then at herself. Rachel understood. She needed to keep Derek talking, needed him to keep incriminating himself. I should at least call 911, right? Rachel said. For the death certificate? Don't we need official documentation? Yes, but not right this second. Derek's voice took on a soothing quality that made Rachel's skin crawl. Here's what we're going to do. I need you to go to the kitchen. Make yourself some tea. Warm up. You sound like you're freezing. Take 20 minutes to collect yourself. Then we'll call the non-emergency line for the county. We'll explain that an elderly stroke patient passed away peacefully in her sleep. They'll send someone out to officially pronounce her. It'll be quiet, professional, no drama, okay? Where are you right now? Rachel asked. A pause. Too long. Brandon and I are at a cabin upstate, about 3 hours away. We needed some guy time, you know? Clear our heads. The stress of taking care of Mom has been intense. Eleanor's expression turned murderous. She scribbled something on a piece of paper and held it up. Ask about coming home. Are you coming home? Rachel let her voice crack. I can't do this alone, Derek. I can't handle this by myself. Another pause. Rachel could almost hear the calculations happening in his mind. I'll head back first thing in the morning. It's almost midnight now, and the roads are terrible with this storm. I don't want to risk an accident. You understand, right? Mom's already gone. A few more hours won't change anything. What about Brandon? He'll stay up here. Honestly, he's pretty upset. He and Mom were close, you know. This is hitting him hard. I think it's better if he has some time to process before coming back. Close. Brandon and Eleanor were close. The man who had kicked her wheelchair and swapped her medication for sugar pills was supposedly too grief-stricken to come home. Rachel felt bile rise in her throat. Okay, she said weakly. Okay, first thing in the morning. That's my girl. Look, I need to go. I should tell Brandon about Mom. This is going to devastate him. But Rachel, don't do anything until morning. Don't call anyone. Don't touch anything in Mom's room. Just go to bed and try to get some rest. We'll handle everything properly when I get there. I love you. The last 3 words felt like acid in her ears. I love you too, Rachel forced herself to say. She ended the call and looked at Eleanor. He's not coming tonight. He said the roads are too dangerous. Of course he did. Eleanor's voice was bitter. He needs time to get his story straight. Time to coach Brandon. Time to call Vanessa and celebrate. They'll spend tonight planning how to play the grieving family, how to look appropriately devastated while they wait for the inheritance they think is coming. Eleanor stood up from the bed, steadier now than she'd been 30 minutes ago. The water and medication were working. Color was returning to her cheeks. Help me to the bathroom. I need to shower and change. I can't think clearly while I smell like 3 days of neglect. Rachel supported Eleanor across the hall to the bathroom. The older woman was still weak, still shaky, but there was strength returning with each passing minute. While Eleanor showered, Rachel went to the kitchen and made scrambled eggs, toast, and hot tea. Real food. The kind of sustenance Eleanor desperately needed. When Eleanor emerged from the bathroom 20 minutes later, wearing clean clothes from her closet, she looked almost like herself again. Her silver hair was clean and brushed. Her face, though pale and drawn, showed intelligence and determination. She sat at the small table in her room and ate slowly but steadily, while Rachel watched. "Tell me about the house," Rachel said. "You said Derek's name isn't on the deed?" Eleanor swallowed a bite of toast. "The house is owned by an LLC called Riverside Properties Holdings. I created it 8 years ago. Derek and Brandon know the house exists, obviously. They live here, but they've never seen the actual paperwork. When they moved in, I told them I'd put the house in Derek's name as a gift. I showed them some documents I'd had my lawyer create, official-looking papers that said what they wanted to hear. They never bothered to verify. Why would you do that? Because I wanted to know if they'd take care of my property, or if they'd trash it the moment they thought it was theirs. I wanted to see if ownership would make them responsible or reckless." Eleanor's smile was grim. "You've seen how well they've maintained things. The broken cabinet in the kitchen that's been broken for 2 years. The leak in the upstairs bathroom they never fixed. The yard full of weeds because they couldn't be bothered to mow. They treated my house like a rental they didn't care about. That told me everything I needed to know." Rachel thought about the countless times she'd asked Derek to fix things, only to be told he'd get to it eventually. She'd assumed he was just busy with work. Now she understood. He didn't care, because he thought the house was already his. Why maintain something you already own? "What about Derek's job?" Rachel asked. "He makes good money. He's always talking about his important position." Eleanor's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Derek works for Harrison Financial Services. Do you know who owns Harrison Financial Services?" Rachel shook her head. "I do. Through a subsidiary of a subsidiary. It's one of 23 companies in my portfolio. I arranged for Derek to get hired there 11 years ago. I wanted him to have the opportunity to prove himself, to build a career on merit. Instead, he's been coasting on nepotism he doesn't even know exists. Every promotion he's received, every raise, every accolade, all of it was orchestrated by me through intermediaries. He thinks he's succeeded through talent. The truth is, he's barely competent. His supervisors keep him around because they think he has connections, which he does. He just doesn't know what those connections actually are." Rachel felt dizzy. "So his entire career is a fiction," Eleanor finished. "Built and maintained by me. The moment I withdraw my support, the moment I reveal the truth to the board, Derek will discover that he has no actual skills, no real accomplishments, and no prospects. He'll be unemployable in his field. His reputation will be destroyed when people realize his success was entirely manufactured. How much does he actually make? Theoretically, $195,000 a year. In reality, about 60% of that salary comes from a discretionary bonus fund that I control. The base salary for his actual position is around $78,000. Respectable, but not impressive. The rest is money I've been funneling to him through corporate channels. Money that will disappear the moment I choose to cut it off." Seat. Rachel stared at the woman in front of her, seeing her clearly for the first time. This wasn't a helpless widow. This wasn't a stroke victim barely clinging to life. This was a woman who had built an empire, controlled millions of dollars, and orchestrated complex financial structures across multiple states. And for 6 months, she had played the role of a debilitated elderly woman with such conviction that even Rachel, who had spent hours caring for her, had never suspected the truth. "Why did you let me struggle?" Rachel asked quietly. "I've been working myself to exhaustion trying to pay bills, cover expenses. You watched me leave for work at 6 in the morning and come home at 8 at night. You saw how tired I was. Why didn't you help me?" Eleanor set down her fork and met Rachel's eyes. "Because I needed to know who you were when no one was rewarding you for goodness. I needed to see if you would be kind to a helpless old woman, even when that kindness cost you something, even when it made your life harder, even when no one was watching or keeping score." She reached across the table and took Rachel's hand. "Do you remember 3 months ago, late on a Thursday night?" Rachel shook her head. "You came into my room around 11 o'clock. You thought I was asleep. You'd just gotten home from a work dinner that ran late. You were exhausted. I could see it in every line of your body. But you came in anyway to check on me. And when you saw that the blanket had slipped off the bed, you didn't just pull it back up. You tucked it carefully around me. You smoothed my hair. You whispered, 'Sleep well, Eleanor. I hope you're having good dreams.'" Eleanor's voice thickened. That moment, that tiny, simple moment, when you were gentle with someone you thought couldn't appreciate it, couldn't thank you, couldn't give you anything in return. That's when I knew. That's when I understood that you were genuine, that your kindness wasn't performance, it was character. Rachel felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I didn't know you could hear me. I heard everything. Every kind word, every gentle touch, every time you sat with me even though you had 1,000 other things to do, every time you talked to me like I was a person instead of a problem. I heard it all, Rachel, and I documented it all, not for evidence, for gratitude, so I would remember that there are still good people in this world, people worth protecting, people worth fighting for." The two women sat in silence for a moment, hands clasped across the small table. Finally, Eleanor spoke again. "There's more you need to see, more evidence. And then I need to tell you the full plan. Because Derek will be home in approximately 8 hours, and by the time he walks through that door, this house needs to look very different from how he left it." "What do you mean?" Eleanor stood, steadier now, and walked back to the hidden monitor. She pressed a series of buttons, and the screen split into multiple video feeds again. "This footage is from 6 weeks ago," she said. "Watch the main bedroom, the room you share with Derek." The video showed Derek entering the bedroom, phone pressed to his ear. Rachel recognized the shirt he was wearing. She'd been in Seattle that week for a conference. Derek's voice came through clearly. "No, she's gone for 4 days. Yes, I'm sure. She sent me her full itinerary, like the controlling helicopter wife she is." He laughed at something the person on the other end said. "I know, right? She probably has me microchipped. But listen, that's not why I called. I talked to my lawyer buddy. He said if Mom dies while Rachel is the primary caretaker, we could make a case for negligence, especially if there's any gap in her care. Anytime Rachel wasn't here to give Mom her medications or check on her." Rachel's stomach dropped. "So here's what I'm thinking," Derek continued, pacing the bedroom. "Next time Rachel goes on a trip, we take a little vacation ourselves. Leave Mom alone for a few days. If something happens, if Mom deteriorates or dies, it's on Rachel's watch. She was supposed to be the responsible one. She was supposed to arrange backup care. The fact that she didn't? That's negligence. Maybe even manslaughter if we play it right." He sat on the edge of the bed. Their bed. The bed Rachel slept in every night. "And here's the beautiful part. If we can pin Mom's death on Rachel's negligence, she gets nothing in the divorce. No house, no sympathy, no credibility. She'd be lucky to avoid criminal charges. And all Mom's money comes to me free and clear. No split, no fight, no complications." Eleanor paused the video. This was 6 weeks ago. He's been planning this for at least that long. The trip you just took to the East Coast? He saw that as his opportunity. He convinced Brandon to go along with it. They abandoned me deliberately, hoping I would die while you were gone. And then they would blame you for my death. Rachel couldn't breathe. The room spun. He was going to frame me for murder. Manslaughter, Eleanor corrected. Negligence, causing death. It's a lower charge, easier to prove, and in the court of public opinion just as damning. Your career would be over, your reputation destroyed. You'd be the woman who let her helpless mother-in-law die while she was off on a business trip. But I didn't know, Rachel whispered. I didn't know he was planning to leave you alone. He told me he'd be here the whole time. He promised. I know, Eleanor said gently, and that's exactly why you need to see this. Because when Derek comes home tomorrow morning, he's going to try to manipulate you. He's going to try to make you feel guilty, make you doubt yourself, make you take responsibility for his actions. And you need to be armed with the truth. You need to remember that every word out of his mouth is a calculated lie. She pressed play on another video. This one showed the kitchen from 2 weeks ago. Brandon stood at the counter, phone in hand, having what was clearly a video call. Yeah, she's totally out of it, Brandon was saying, angling his phone toward Eleanor's wheelchair in the background. Look at her. Doesn't even know I'm talking about her. Doesn't react to anything. He walked closer to Eleanor, waving his hand in front of her face. On screen, Eleanor stared blankly ahead, drool on her chin. See? Vegetable City. Derek thinks she might last a few more months. But honestly, I don't see it. She's circling the drain. And when she finally kicks it, we're splitting 300 grand. Maybe more if she's got insurance we don't know about. The person on the other end of the call said something Brandon found hilarious. He laughed, a cruel sound that made Rachel flinch. I know, right? My brother's an idiot for keeping her this long. Should have pulled the plug months ago, but he's all worried about how it looks. Worried about precious Rachel and her opinions. Like she matters. She's just the bank account that pays the bills until we cash out. Brandon moved closer to the wheelchair again. Want to see something funny? Watch this. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small bottle. The medication. He opened it, dumped a pill into his palm, and held it up to the camera. This is supposed to be her heart medication. Keeps her from having another stroke. But guess what it actually is? He popped the pill into his mouth and made an exaggerated chewing motion. Sugar pill. I've been swapping them out for weeks. She has no idea. Hell, even if she did know, what's she going to do? Tell someone? She can't even form a sentence. He swallowed, grinned at the camera. I'm basically killing her in slow motion. And the best part? When she finally dies, it'll look like natural causes. Old lady with a history of strokes has another stroke. Tragic, but expected. No investigation, no questions, just a funeral and a check. The person on the video call said something that made Brandon's grin widen. Yeah, Derek would lose his mind if he knew. He's too much of a coward to do anything active. Wants to wait for nature. But I'm done waiting. I've got plans, man. Places to go, things to buy, and I'm not spending another year in this dump babysitting a corpse. Eleanor stopped the video. Her hands were shaking. That was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks of him openly admitting to attempted murder. 2 weeks of clear, documented intent to kill me. And the person he was talking to? I have their number, their identity, everything. They're an accessory after the fact because Brandon told them exactly what he was doing, and they encouraged it. Rachel couldn't stop staring at the frozen image on the screen. Brandon's smiling face, so proud of his cruelty, so confident in his safety. We have him, she said. We have both of them. Multiple counts. Attempted murder, conspiracy, elder abuse. All of it on video with timestamps and audio. Why are we waiting? Why not call the police right now? Because video evidence can be challenged, Eleanor said. Defense lawyers can claim it was taken out of context, that it was edited, that their clients were joking or venting or didn't mean what they said. I need more than surveillance footage. I need them to act. I need them to commit crimes in real time, with witnesses, with documentation that can't be disputed. She turned to face Rachel fully. That text message Derek sent you tonight? Telling you not to call 911 when he thought I was dead? That's conspiracy to commit a crime. That's depraved indifference to human life. But it's still just a text message. He can claim he was in shock, not thinking clearly, didn't mean it literally. So, what do we need? We need him to double down. We need him to come here tomorrow, see what he thinks is my corpse, and make decisions that prove his intent. We need him to actively try to cover up what he thinks is my death, to hide evidence, to manipulate the situation. And we need all of that documented by professionals who can testify in court. Eleanor walked to the window, pulled back the curtain slightly, and looked out at the rainy night. For the past 2 months, I've been working with a prosecutor in the county attorney's office, a woman named Sarah Mitchell. She's been building a case based on my surveillance footage, medical records that show the medication tampering, financial documents that prove fraud, but she's been waiting for the right moment to strike, the moment when the evidence is overwhelming and irrefutable. She knows about all of this. She knows everything. And tomorrow morning, when Derek walks into this house, she'll have investigators ready, prosecutors ready, arrest warrants ready. But first, Derek needs to finish hanging himself. He needs to walk into the trap completely convinced he's won. Eleanor turned back to Rachel, which is why we need to transform this house tonight. We need to remove every trace of Derek and Brandon. We need to restore it to what it was always meant to be. And we need to do it in a way that makes Derek understand, in the moment he's arrested, exactly how thoroughly he's been beaten. How do we do all of that in 8 hours? Eleanor smiled. We don't do it alone. I've had a team on standby for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Professional movers, cleaners, restoration specialists. They're 20 minutes away. 1 phone call and they'll be here. By sunrise, this house will look completely different. Derek will know something's wrong the moment he sees it. Exactly, Eleanor said. That's the point. I want him confused, off balance, desperate. Because when people are desperate, they make mistakes. And every mistake he makes will be witnessed and documented by people who can testify against him in court. Rachel looked around the small bedroom that had been Eleanor's prison for 6 months. The cheap furniture, the ugly curtains, the wheelchair sitting empty in the corner. All of this was fake, she said. The helplessness, the poverty, the weakness, all of it was a performance. The stroke was real, Eleanor said quietly. The fear I felt when it happened was real, but the recovery was faster than anyone expected. And when I realized how quickly I was getting better, I saw an opportunity, a chance to see who my sons really were when they thought I couldn't fight back, when they thought I couldn't expose them, when they thought they held all the power. And what did you see? Monsters, Eleanor said simply. Men who would kill their own mother for money they didn't even need. Men who would frame an innocent woman for a crime they committed. Men who deserve everything that's about to happen to them. She picked up her phone from the dresser. I'm going to make the call. The team will be here in 20 minutes. While we wait, I need you to understand something very important, Rachel. Once we start this, there's no stopping. Once those movers walk through that door, once we begin transforming this house, we're committed. Derek will be arrested. Brandon will be arrested. Your marriage will be over. Your life will change completely and irrevocably. I understand. Do you? Eleanor's eyes were intense. Because you could walk away right now. You could leave this house, file for divorce quietly, start over somewhere new. I would make sure you were financially secure. You don't have to be part of the coming storm. Rachel thought about the videos she'd seen. Derek calling her a walking paycheck. Brandon laughing about attempted murder, the casual cruelty, the calculated betrayal, the complete lack of humanity. She thought about 7 months of coming home exhausted, to care for someone she thought was helpless. 7 months of Derek's false concern and Brandon's fake grief. 7 months of being used and manipulated and lied to by people who were supposed to love her. "Make the call," Rachel said. "I want to watch them burn." Eleanor smiled. "That's my girl." She dialed a number and spoke briefly to whoever answered. When she hung up, her expression was fierce and satisfied. 20 minutes. And then we go to war. 17 minutes later, 3 unmarked vans pulled quietly into the driveway. Despite the late hour and the rain that had finally softened to a drizzle, a team of 8 people emerged with the efficiency of a military operation. They wore matching dark blue uniforms with a logo Rachel didn't recognize, and they moved with purpose toward the house. Eleanor met them at the door, standing straighter than Rachel had seen in months. The team leader, a woman in her 40s with steel-gray hair pulled into a tight bun, embraced Eleanor briefly. "Ms. Hartwell," the woman said, "it's good to see you on your feet." "It's good to be on my feet, Patricia. Thank you for coming on such short notice." Patricia glanced at Rachel, then back at Eleanor. This is Rachel, my daughter-in-law. The good one. She's with us completely." Patricia extended her hand to Rachel. "Patricia Donovan. I run Hartwell Estate Services. We've been on standby for 3 weeks, waiting for this call." "Estate Services?" Rachel shook her hand, confused. "One of Eleanor's companies," Patricia explained. "We specialize in estate transitions, property restoration, and asset recovery. Normally, we work with executors and trustees during inheritance processes. Tonight, we're doing something a bit different." Eleanor gestured toward the living room. "Everything in the main areas of this house needs to be removed and placed in storage unit 472. You have the address?" "We do," Patricia confirmed. "What about the items in the back bedroom?" "Those stay. Everything else goes. The furniture in storage unit 471 gets brought in and placed according to the original floor plan. You have photos?" Patricia pulled out a tablet and showed Eleanor a series of images. Rachel caught glimpses of elegant furniture, nothing like the cheap pieces currently filling the house. Leather sofas in rich cognac tones, a dining table that looked like actual wood instead of pressed particle board, artwork that appeared expensive even in thumbnail size. "Perfect," Eleanor said. "How long do you estimate?" Patricia checked her watch. "With 8 people? 4 hours for removal and deep cleaning. Another 2 for installation and arrangement. We'll be done by 7 in the morning." "Derek will be here by 8, Eleanor said. "That gives us an hour buffer. Let's move." The team dispersed throughout the house like a choreographed dance. 2 people went immediately to the living room and began wrapping furniture in protective blankets. Another pair headed upstairs to the bedrooms Derek and Brandon used. Patricia and 2 others consulted blueprints spread across the kitchen counter, marking sections and making notes. Rachel stood in the entryway, overwhelmed. "This is really happening." Eleanor touched her arm. "Come with me. There's something else you need to see before we go any further." She led Rachel back to the hidden monitor in the back bedroom. "I told you I've been working with a prosecutor. What I didn't tell you is the full extent of the investigation. It goes beyond Derek and Brandon." She pulled up a new video file. This one dated just 4 days ago. The timestamp showed 2 in the afternoon. The location was clearly a restaurant, based on the background noise and table settings visible in the frame. Derek sat across from Vanessa. They were holding hands across the table. "Only a matter of time now," Derek was saying. "Mom's deteriorating fast. The doctor said maybe 2 weeks, a month at most." That was a lie. There had been no recent doctor's appointment. Eleanor had refused all medical visits for the past 3 months, claiming through her apparent confusion that she didn't want to go. Derek had used that refusal to craft whatever narrative suited him. "And you're sure about the will?" Vanessa asked. "You're certain everything comes to you?" "Mom never changed it after Dad died. I'm the oldest son. I'm the executor. Everything flows through me. Brandon will get his share, but I control the distribution." "And Rachel?" Derek laughed. "She's not even in the will. She's not family by blood. She gets nothing. Vanessa leaned forward. What about the house? In my name. Has been for years. Rachel's been paying the mortgage on property that's legally mine. When we divorce, she'll realize she's been funding my asset for our entire marriage. The look on her face when she figures that out will almost be worth the hassle of the divorce proceedings. Do you think she'll fight it? Derek shrugged. She can try. But I've been documenting her neglect of Mom for months. I have dates, times, instances where she was too busy with work to provide proper care. Any judge will see that she prioritized her career over family. That makes her look cold, selfish. Exactly the kind of person who shouldn't get a sympathetic settlement. Vanessa sipped her wine. And once it's all final, once you have the inheritance and the divorce is done, we go to Arizona like we planned. I'll buy that house you liked in Scottsdale. We'll start fresh. No more walking on eggshells around Rachel and her judgmental attitude. No more pretending to care about Mom's medical updates. Just us, living the life we deserve. I can't wait, Vanessa said, squeezing his hand. I'm tired of being the secret. Soon, baby. Very soon. Mom's hanging on by a thread, and the second she lets go, everything changes. Everything becomes ours. Eleanor stopped the video. This was 4 days ago. 72 hours before they abandoned me and went on their vacation. They were already celebrating my death before it happened. Already planning their future with money they thought was coming. Rachel felt numb. The house in Scottsdale. He was that specific? I had it checked out, Eleanor said. He put in an offer 3 weeks ago. Contingent on pending inheritance. The seller's agent has documentation. Written proof that Derek was planning to use my estate to buy a home with his mistress. That's fraud. Misrepresentation of assets. Intent to steal from an estate before the person is even deceased. How did you get all this footage? Rachel asked. This is in a restaurant. Public place. Vanessa's phone, Eleanor said simply. She's very active on social media. Takes photos of everything she eats, everywhere she goes, everyone she's with. Very convenient for someone who knows how to access cloud storage. My IT specialist has been monitoring her activity for 2 months. Rachel stared. That's legal? Ethically questionable, Eleanor admitted. But the conversation itself is admissible. It took place in public with no expectation of privacy. Anything they said within earshot of other diners is fair game. And Vanessa was kind enough to document the date, time, and location with her own photos. She posted 3 pictures from that lunch to her social media accounts. Pictures that show her and Derek together, holding hands, clearly in a relationship. That destroys any claim Derek might make that she was just a colleague or friend. From the living room came the sound of furniture being moved, wrapped, and carried out to the waiting vans. The transformation had begun. Eleanor pulled up another file on the monitor. There's one more thing you need to know before Derek arrives tomorrow. Something about your relationship with him. About how you ended up married to him in the first place. Rachel's stomach dropped. What do you mean? You met Derek 6 years ago at a professional networking event, correct? Yes. He approached me. We talked about architecture and design. He seemed interested in my work. Genuinely interested, I thought. Eleanor's expression was sad. He was interested in your career. Specifically, in your earning potential. Derek has never held a job for more than 2 years without my intervention. He's been fired 4 times for incompetence and twice for inappropriate behavior with female colleagues. Each time, I've used my connections to get him placed somewhere new. Somewhere the hiring managers owed me favors. I don't understand. What does this have to do with me? 3 months before Derek met you, he was fired from his position at a marketing firm. The termination was messy. Accusations of expense account fraud. I managed to make it go away quietly, but I told him it was the last time. I told him he needed to either grow up and take responsibility for his life, or he would face the consequences of his actions without my protection. Eleanor pulled up what looked like email correspondence on the screen. 2 weeks after that conversation, Derek sent me this. The email was from Derek to someone named Michael, dated 6 years ago. Found the perfect solution to my money problems. Met an architect named Rachel Hartwell at an event last night. No relation to Mom, different Hartwell family. She's successful, makes good money, and seems like the type who'd be a responsible partner. Not as hot as the girls I usually date, but she's got that stable career woman thing going on. Mom's been on my case about settling down anyway. If I marry someone with a solid income, I can stop worrying about keeping jobs long term. I can coast on her salary while I figure out what I really want to do. Plus, bonus, same last name as Mom means less chance of people connecting her money to my future inheritance. Win-win. Rachel felt like she'd been punched. The room tilted. She grabbed the edge of the dresser for support. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not. We fell in love. He pursued me. He said what you needed to hear," Eleanor said gently. "He studied you, learned what you valued, presented himself as exactly the kind of man you'd want. And it worked. You married him 14 months after meeting him. You combined your finances. You bought a house together. Or rather, you thought you were buying it together. In reality, you've been paying the mortgage on my property, while Derek contributed just enough to maintain the illusion of partnership." Rachel's legs wouldn't hold her. She sank onto the bed, tears streaming down her face. 6 years. I've been married to him for 6 years. We've built a life. He's been using you for 6 years. Eleanor corrected, not unkindly. "And I'm sorry, Rachel. I'm so deeply sorry. I should have told you sooner. Should have warned you. But I didn't know about the email until 4 months ago when I started investigating Derek's digital history. By then, you'd been married for years. I couldn't just tell you your entire marriage was a calculated deception. You would never have believed me. So you waited. You documented. You let me keep living the lie. I protected you," Eleanor said firmly. "Every month, I made sure the mortgage was actually being paid. Every time Derek tried to take out a loan against the house or access equity that didn't exist, I blocked it through the LLC. Every time he suggested you quit your job or take a lower-paying position, I had my lawyer send anonymous messages to your firm offering you new opportunities. I couldn't tell you the truth, but I could make sure his plans to exploit you failed." Rachel looked up through her tears. "New opportunities? The promotion I got 2 years ago? The raise last year? Entirely your merit," Eleanor assured her. "But the timing of when those opportunities were presented? That was me making sure your firm appreciated your value before Derek could convince you to undervalue yourself. He's been trying to erode your confidence for years, make you dependent on him financially and emotionally. I've been running interference without you knowing." From the hallway came Patricia's voice calling out measurements and directions. The sounds of transformation continued. The old house being stripped away, the real house being revealed. "Show me the rest," Rachel said, wiping her eyes. "Whatever else you have, I need to see it all. I need to know exactly who I've been married to." Eleanor hesitated. "Rachel, you've seen enough. You don't need to torture yourself. Show me." Rachel's voice was steel. "If I'm going to face him tomorrow, if I'm going to stand there while he's arrested and watch his world collapse, I need to know every single thing he's done. Every lie, every manipulation, every moment of betrayal. Show me all of it." Eleanor studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but understand that what you're about to see will hurt. It will change how you view your entire marriage. Your entire adult life. I understand." Eleanor pulled up a folder containing dozens of files. These are text messages between Derek and various women over the past 6 years. Vanessa isn't his first affair. She's not even his second. She opened the first file. Messages between Derek and someone named Jessica, dated 4 years ago. Explicit content. Plans to meet at hotels. Discussions of how boring and frigid Rachel was. How she was useful for paying bills, but not much else. The second file showed messages with someone named Amanda 3 years ago. Similar content, more cruelty, more casual dismissal of Rachel as anything other than a financial resource. Eleanor clicked through file after file. Each one showed Derek with a different woman. Each one contained messages that made Rachel feel smaller, cheaper, more foolish for believing that her marriage had been real. "Enough," Rachel finally said, holding up her hand. "I get it. He never loved me. He never even liked me. I was just a paycheck with benefits." "You were a good person who deserved better," Eleanor said, "and you're going to get better. But first, we have to finish this." She pulled up one final video file. "This is from yesterday, the day they left you that note and abandoned me." The video showed Derek and Brandon in the living room, packing bags for their trip. They were laughing, joking, in high spirits. "I still can't believe we're actually doing this," Brandon said, zipping up a duffel bag. "Just leaving her here to die." "She's not going to die," Derek said dismissively. "Probably. She'll be uncomfortable for a few days, sure. But Rachel will be home soon enough. She'll find Mom, take care of everything, and never know we deliberately left her alone. As far as anyone knows, we were just two guys taking a weekend trip who had terrible timing. But what if she does die?" Brandon pressed. Derek shrugged. "Then she dies on Rachel's watch. Rachel was supposed to arrange backup care before going on her trip. Rachel was supposed to make sure Mom had everything she needed. The fact that she didn't? That's negligence. We're actually doing Rachel a favor by being gone. If Mom deteriorates, Rachel takes the blame, and we get the inheritance free and clear." Brandon grinned. "You're a genius, you know that?" "I'm pragmatic," Derek corrected. "Mom's been a burden for too long. This situation resolves itself one way or another. Either she survives a few uncomfortable days and learns to be less demanding, or she doesn't survive, and we move on with our lives. Win-win." He picked up a piece of paper and scribbled the note Rachel had found. The cold, dismissive message about the old lady in the back room. "This should cover it," Derek said, propping the note against the beer bottle. "Rachel will come home, find this, deal with Mom, and we'll come back in 3 days like nothing happened. Perfect alibi. Perfect outcome." The video ended. Rachel sat in silence for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was eerily calm. "I want him destroyed. Not just arrested. Not just prosecuted. I want his entire life dismantled. Every lie exposed. Every manipulation revealed. Every person who ever believed he was a good person needs to know the truth." "That's exactly what's going to happen," Eleanor promised. "The prosecutor has everything. The videos, the messages, the financial records showing fraud and exploitation, the medical evidence of Brandon's medication tampering, the recorded conversations showing conspiracy and intent. When they're arrested tomorrow, they won't just face criminal charges, they'll face complete social and professional annihilation." A knock on the bedroom door interrupted them. Patricia stood in the doorway. "Ms. Hartwell, we're ready for the second phase. The living room and dining room are clear. Kitchen is clear. Both upstairs bedrooms are packed. We can start bringing in the real furniture whenever you're ready." Eleanor stood. "Let's do it. Rachel, come with me. I want you to see what this house was always supposed to look like." They walked through the now empty main floor. The cheap furniture was gone. The discount store decorations had been removed. Even the carpet, stained and worn, had been pulled up to reveal beautiful hardwood floors underneath. Patricia consulted her tablet. "The hardwood just needs a quick polish. We can have that done in 30 minutes. The furniture from storage is loaded and ready. Where would you like us to start?" "Living room," Eleanor said. "Let's rebuild from the ground up." For the next 4 hours, Rachel watched as the house transformed. The team worked with quiet efficiency, bringing in pieces that made the cheap furniture look like garbage in comparison. A leather sofa in rich cognac tones that Patricia explained was Italian, custom-made, 12 years old, but maintained perfectly in climate-controlled storage. An antique coffee table that Eleanor said had belonged to her grandmother. Artwork that even Rachel's untrained eye recognized as expensive originals. The dining room received a table that could seat 10, made of dark walnut with an oiled finish that glowed in the light. Chairs upholstered in cream fabric, a china cabinet containing dishes that looked antique and precious. The kitchen, which had been functional but unremarkable, received new hardware on all the cabinets, a fresh coat of paint, and organizational systems that made it look like something from a design magazine. Even the small details changed. The discount store curtains were replaced with custom drapes in muted earth tones. The cheap plastic trash cans became stainless steel. The fluorescent overhead lighting was swapped for elegant fixtures that cast warm, inviting light. By 6 in the morning, the house looked like a completely different property. Elegant, sophisticated, expensive. The home of someone with wealth and taste. Eleanor stood in the living room, surveying the transformation. This is what Derek threw away. This is what he gave up when he chose cruelty over character. He could have lived here, could have been part of this. Instead, he'll see it for the first time, just before he loses everything. Rachel walked through each room, touching surfaces that felt foreign in their quality. He's going to know something's wrong the moment he sees this. Good, Eleanor said. I want him confused, disoriented, desperate, because that's when people make the mistakes that seal their fate. Patricia appeared in the doorway. We're done, Ms. Hartwell. Everything's in place according to the original floor plan. The storage units are secured. The cleaners have finished. Is there anything else you need? Eleanor checked her watch. What time is it? 6:47 in the morning. Derek will be here within the hour. Eleanor turned to Rachel. Are you ready for this? Rachel thought about the videos she'd seen, the lies she'd believed, the 6 years she'd spent loving a man who saw her as nothing more than a walking paycheck. I'm ready, she said. What do we need to do? We need to make one phone call, Eleanor said, pulling out her cell phone, to the prosecutor, to tell her it's time to move. She dialed, waited for the call to connect. Sarah? It's Eleanor. Yes, everything's ready. He'll be here within the hour. I need your team in position. A pause. Yes, Rachel's with me. She's been extraordinary. Another pause. Understood. We'll be ready. She hung up and looked at Rachel. In 30 minutes, plainclothes investigators will take up positions in unmarked vehicles around the neighborhood. When Derek arrives, they'll wait for him to enter the house. They'll wait for him to see the changes. And they'll wait for him to do exactly what Sarah and I expect him to do, which is panic, make calls, try to cover his tracks, try to remove evidence or manipulate the situation. Every action he takes will be witnessed and documented by professionals. And when he's finished digging his own grave, they'll move in with arrest warrants. Eleanor's phone buzzed with a text message. She read it, then smiled grimly. Derek just sent you a message. He's 45 minutes away. Says he's driving as fast as safely possible to get home to you in this difficult time. Rachel's own phone buzzed. She pulled it out and read Derek's message. The false concern, the performative grief, the careful wording designed to make him look like a devoted son and supportive husband. She typed back a response. Okay, I'm here. I haven't called anyone yet like you said. Waiting for you. His reply came immediately. Good girl. Sit tight. Don't touch anything. We'll handle everything together when I get there. Good girl. Rachel read aloud, her voice flat. Like I'm a pet that performed a trick. Like you're someone he thinks he controls? Eleanor corrected. Someone who'll do what she's told without question. He has no idea what he's about to walk into. The doorbell rang. Both women jumped. Patricia appeared at the living room entrance. That's our cue to leave. The house is yours, Ms. Hartwell. Everything's exactly as it should be. She hugged Eleanor briefly. Good luck. Make them pay. Count on it, Eleanor said. Patricia and her team filed out quietly, loading into the unmarked vans and driving away. Within minutes, the street was silent again. Just another ordinary morning in an ordinary neighborhood. Except nothing about this morning would be ordinary. Eleanor positioned herself in her wheelchair, which had been placed strategically in the living room. I need to look the part one more time, just for the initial shock value. Are you sure you want to do this? Rachel asked. You could wait in the back room. Let me handle Derek when he arrives. Oh no, Eleanor said, her eyes glinting with something fierce. I wouldn't miss this for anything. I've waited 6 months for the moment Derek realizes he's been outplayed. I want to see his face. I want to watch him understand that the senile old woman was smarter than he ever dreamed of being. Rachel's phone buzzed again. A message from Derek. 10 minutes away. Eleanor and Rachel exchanged a look. Positions, Eleanor said softly. Let the final act begin. Rachel sat on the elegant cognac leather sofa, hands folded in her lap, and waited for her husband to walk into the trap that would destroy him. The sound of tires on gravel announced Derek's arrival at exactly 7:38 in the morning. Rachel heard the car door slam, footsteps hurrying up the walkway. She forced herself to remain still on the sofa, hands clasped tightly in her lap to keep them from shaking. The front door opened. Derek stepped inside, already talking. Rachel? Baby, I'm so sorry it took me this long to get here. The traffic was insane and... He stopped mid-sentence. His mouth hung open. His eyes went wide as he took in the living room that looked nothing like the house he'd left 3 days ago. The cheap furniture was gone. In its place stood elegant pieces he'd never seen before. The worn carpet had vanished, revealing gleaming hardwood floors. Original artwork hung on walls that had been repainted in sophisticated earth tones. Even the lighting was different, casting warm shadows instead of the harsh fluorescent glare he was used to. What the hell? Derek's voice came out strangled. What? Where's all our stuff? Rachel, what did you do? Before Rachel could answer, movement from the corner of the room caught his attention. Eleanor sat in her wheelchair, but she wasn't slumped or drooling or vacant-eyed. She was sitting upright, alert, watching him with an expression of cold calculation. Hello, Derek, Eleanor said, her voice clear and strong. Welcome home. Derek stumbled backward, hitting the wall. Mom? You're alive? Rachel said you weren't breathing. She said you were dead. I said your mother stopped breathing and felt cold, Rachel corrected, her voice remarkably steady. You were the one who assumed she was dead. You were the one who told me not to call for help. Remember? Derek's eyes darted between the two women. Rachel could see his mind racing, trying to understand what was happening. This doesn't make sense. Mom, you've been practically catatonic for months. How are you talking? How are you sitting up, speaking clearly, looking directly at you with complete awareness? Eleanor smiled, and it was not a kind smile. I've been capable of all those things for 5 months, Derek. I just chose not to show you. I chose to let you believe I was helpless, vulnerable, unable to defend myself or tell anyone what you were doing to me. The color drained from Derek's face. What I was doing. Mom, I don't know what Rachel's been telling you, but Rachel hasn't told me anything I didn't already know, Eleanor interrupted. Because I've been watching you, Derek, recording you, documenting every cruel word, every malicious act, every calculated moment of abuse you thought no one could see. Derek's gaze swept the room again, this time with growing panic. He was looking for cameras now, looking for evidence of surveillance. That's right, Eleanor said. Every room in this house has been under video and audio surveillance for 5 months. Those cameras you approved installing for my safety? The ones you signed the contracts for without reading them? They've been recording you this entire time. You authorized your own surveillance, Derek. How does it feel? That's illegal, Derek said, his voice rising. You can't record people without their consent. That's invasion of privacy. Any evidence you think you have would be thrown out of court. Actually, it's completely legal, Rachel said. You signed a consent form when the security system was installed. You gave explicit permission for audio and video recording throughout the house. Eleanor's lawyer made sure every single document was legally airtight. Derek's hands clenched into fists. This is insane. You're both insane. Mom, whatever Rachel has convinced you of, I convinced her of nothing. Rachel stood up, her voice gaining strength. Your mother showed me the truth. She showed me videos of you and Vanessa planning my humiliation. She showed me messages where you called me a walking paycheck. She showed me Brandon admitting to poisoning her medication. She showed me everything, Derek. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment you thought you were getting away with it. Vanessa is a colleague, Derek said automatically. There are 17 videos of her in this house, Eleanor said calmly. 17 separate occasions over the past 3 months where you brought your mistress into the home Rachel pays for. Would you like me to describe what you did on the sofa you're standing next to? The sofa that used to be there, I mean. The new furniture is considerably nicer. Derek looked at the cognac leather sofa like it might bite him. Where's our furniture? Where's all our stuff? In storage, Eleanor said. This was never your house, Derek. It was never your furniture. This house belongs to an LLC that I own. It always has. I let you think your name was on the deed because I wanted to see what you'd do with the illusion of ownership. The answer? You neglected my property, filled it with garbage furniture, and treated it like something you couldn't be bothered to care for. That's impossible. I saw the documents. My name was right there. You saw documents my lawyer created to test you, Eleanor said. Documents that had no legal standing whatsoever. You never thought to verify them with the county recorder's office. You just assumed that because I told you something, it must be true. That was your first mistake, trusting that I was as helpless and confused as I appeared to be. Derek's phone buzzed. He pulled it out reflexively, read the message, and his face went gray. The bank just froze my accounts, all of them. My credit cards are declined. What did you do? I withdrew my financial support, Eleanor said simply. That salary you're so proud of. 60% of it comes from a discretionary bonus fund I control through Harrison Financial Services, a company I own. Did you really think you earned $195,000 a year through merit, Derek? You're barely competent at your job. You've been coasting on nepotism you didn't even know existed. And now that safety net is gone. Derek staggered to the nearest wall, leaning against it for support. You own Harrison? No. I've worked there for 11 years. I've earned every promotion. You've earned nothing, Eleanor said, her voice cutting. Every raise, every promotion, every accolade was orchestrated by me through intermediaries. I gave you opportunities to prove yourself, to show character and competence. Instead, you've spent 11 years being mediocre and blaming others for your failures. Well, now you get to see what your actual market value is. Without my support, you're unemployable in your field. Word travels fast in financial circles. By Monday morning, every firm in the region will know you were a nepotism hire with no real skills. Derek's phone buzzed again and again, message after message flooding in. Rachel could see him reading them, watching his face cycle through disbelief, panic, and finally rage. You can't do this, he said, his voice shaking. You can't just destroy my career because you're angry about some misunderstanding. This isn't a misunderstanding, Rachel said. This is consequences for abandoning your mother and leaving her to die, for planning to frame me for her death, for stealing from her, lying to her, abusing her for months while you waited for her to die so you could inherit money that was never going to be yours. She's my mother, Derek shouted. Everything she has should come to me. I'm her son. I'm her family. You're nothing to me, Eleanor said, and her voice was colder than Rachel had ever heard it. You stopped being my son the moment you kicked my wheelchair, the moment you laughed about my deterioration, the moment you planned my death like it was a business transaction you were impatient to close. The front door opened again. Brandon walked in, clearly having been summoned by Derek's frantic texts. He took one look at the transformed house and froze. "What the hell is going on?" "We've been caught," Derek said bitterly. "Mom's been faking. She's been recording everything. She knows about the medications, about Vanessa, about all of it." Brandon's face went white. His eyes found Eleanor sitting in her wheelchair, very much alive and very much aware. "But you couldn't even talk. You couldn't move. I saw you. Every day for months. You saw what I wanted you to see," Eleanor said. An old woman too weak to fight back, too confused to understand what was happening, too helpless to defend herself. "And you showed me exactly who you are when you think no one's keeping score. You showed me that you're willing to kill your own mother for $300,000 you thought I had." "I never actually hurt you," Brandon said desperately. "I swapped some pills, but you're fine. You're sitting there fine. No harm done." "No harm?" Eleanor's voice rose for the first time. "You admitted on camera to attempting to murder me. You swapped my cardiac medication for sugar pills. You told your friend you were killing me in slow motion. You kicked my wheelchair. You spit in my food. You called me a waste of space, a burden, something to be disposed of, and you're claiming no harm done?" Brandon looked to Derek for support. Derek was staring at his phone, watching his entire life disintegrate in real time through banking alerts and text messages. "We can fix this," Brandon said. "Mom, listen, we made mistakes. We were stressed, and we said things we didn't mean. But we can work this out as a family. We can—" "You're not my family," Eleanor said flatly. "Family doesn't abandon each other. Family doesn't plot each other's death. Family doesn't treat each other like obstacles to overcome on the way to an inheritance. You're strangers who happen to share my DNA. Nothing more." The doorbell rang. All 4 people in the living room froze. Rachel walked to the door and opened it. A woman in her early 50s stood on the porch, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers. Behind them, Rachel could see unmarked vehicles pulling up to the curb. Men and women in suits emerging. The carefully orchestrated final act beginning. "Ms. Hartwell?" the woman said. "I'm Sarah Mitchell, county prosecutor. We spoke on the phone earlier." "Come in," Rachel said, stepping aside. Sarah Mitchell entered the living room with the confidence of someone who had done this many times before. She looked at Derek and Brandon with an expression of professional detachment. "Derek Hartwell? Brandon Hartwell? I'm here to inform you that you're both under arrest." "On what charges?" Derek demanded, finding his voice. "We haven't done anything illegal." "Elder abuse," Sarah said, pulling out a document. "Attempted murder. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Medication tampering. And for you specifically, Derek, there's also conspiracy to commit manslaughter. You instructed your wife not to call emergency services when you believed your mother was dying. That's depraved indifference to human life." She nodded to the officers, who moved forward with handcuffs. "Wait," Derek said, backing away. "You can't prove any of that. It's her word against ours." "Actually, we have 17 hours of high-definition video evidence," Sarah said. "We have text messages. We have financial records showing fraud. We have medical documentation showing the medication tampering. We have recorded conversations where you both admitted to multiple crimes. And we have testimony from Rachel Hartwell, who witnessed the aftermath of your deliberate abandonment of a vulnerable elderly woman." The officers grabbed Derek's arms. He struggled briefly, then went limp as the handcuffs clicked into place. "This is wrong. This is entrapment. My mother set us up." "Your mother documented your crimes," Sarah corrected. "There's a significant difference. She didn't force you to abandon her. She didn't force you to tamper with medication. She didn't force you to plan her death and Rachel's destruction. You did all of that yourselves. She just made sure there was evidence when you did." Brandon was handcuffed next. He was crying now, genuine tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean any of it. I was just angry and stupid and—" "You were cruel," Eleanor said. And now you'll face the consequences of that cruelty. Sarah pulled out her phone and made a brief call. Send her in. 30 seconds later, another officer appeared in the doorway, escorting a woman whose face Rachel recognized from the videos. Vanessa. She looked terrified, her makeup smeared from crying. Ms. Vanessa Torres, Sarah said, you're also under arrest as an accessory to conspiracy to commit fraud and manslaughter. Text messages recovered from your phone show you had knowledge of Derek Hartwell's plans to frame his wife for his mother's death. You encouraged and supported those plans. That makes you legally culpable. I didn't know he was serious, Vanessa sobbed. I thought he was just venting, just talking. You discussed buying a house with him using money from an inheritance before the person was even deceased, Sarah said. You participated in planning a future built on what you both hoped would be his mother's death. That's not venting. That's conspiracy. The three of them were led out in handcuffs. Derek tried to catch Rachel's eye as he passed, his expression pleading. She looked away. She had nothing left to say to him. When the door closed behind them, the house fell silent. Sarah Mitchell pulled out a tablet and showed Eleanor a series of documents. These are the formal charges. The arraignment is scheduled for Monday morning. Given the evidence, I'm confident we'll get no bail for Derek and Brandon. Vanessa might get bail, but it'll be substantial. What are we looking at for sentencing? Eleanor asked. Elder abuse with intent to harm carries up to 15 years. Attempted murder could add another 20. Conspiracy charges, fraud, the medication tampering. We're looking at 30 to 40 years combined if they're convicted on all counts. They'll likely be offered plea deals, but even with cooperation, they're looking at significant prison time. Good, Eleanor said simply. Sarah turned to Rachel. You'll need to give a formal statement about what you witnessed when you returned home, about the condition you found Eleanor in, about Derek's instructions to delay calling for help. Are you prepared to testify if this goes to trial? Absolutely, Rachel said without hesitation. Excellent. Sarah packed up her tablet. I'll be in touch about the deposition schedule. In the meantime, you're both safe. They won't be getting bail. They won't be able to contact you. It's over. Ace. After Sarah left, Rachel and Eleanor sat in the transformed living room, surrounded by elegant furniture and warm lighting. The house was finally quiet. What happens now? Rachel asked. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Now, we rebuild. You file for divorce. It'll be uncontested given the circumstances. The house was never in Derek's name, so there's no property to split. You keep whatever assets are actually yours. Everything else disappears with him. What about you? What will you do? Eleanor smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. I'm 72 years old, Rachel. I've spent 6 months playing helpless to expose my son's true natures. I think I've earned some honesty, some freedom to be who I actually am again. She stood up from the wheelchair, leaving it behind without a second glance. I'm going back to work, not full-time, but as a consultant. The company I built doesn't need me to run it day to day anymore, but there are projects I've been wanting to pursue, mentorships I want to establish, legacies I want to create. And what about me? Rachel asked. I've spent 6 years of my life married to someone who saw me as a paycheck. I don't even know who I am outside of that anymore. Eleanor sat down beside her on the cognac leather sofa. You're a talented architect who's been undervaluing herself because someone convinced you that your worth was measured in your usefulness. You're a kind person who took care of someone she thought was helpless, even when it cost her time and energy she didn't have to spare. You're someone who, when shown the truth, had the courage to stand up and fight back instead of making excuses or looking away. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. This is my personal attorney. He's already drawn up papers creating a trust fund in your name, not charity. An investment in someone who's proven herself worthy of investment. Use it to start your own firm if you want. Use it to take a year off and figure out who you are. Use it however you see fit. Rachel looked at the card, then at Eleanor. Why? After everything Derek put you through, why would you want to help me? Because you're not Derek, Eleanor said simply. You're not defined by his choices or his cruelty. You're your own person, and I happen to think that person deserves better than what she's gotten. She stood up, stretched, and looked around the living room with satisfaction. This house has 4 bedrooms. I only need 1. You're welcome to stay here as long as you want, while you figure out your next steps. Rent-free, no obligations, just a safe space to land while you rebuild. Rachel felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll never again let someone convince you that your value lies in what you can provide rather than who you are. Promise me you'll demand to be loved for yourself, not for your usefulness. Promise me you'll be fierce and strong and unwilling to settle for less than you deserve. Rachel nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. Eleanor squeezed her shoulder once, then headed toward the back bedroom to finally rest in a real bed, in a real home, free from pretense and performance. Rachel sat alone in the beautiful living room, watching early morning sunlight stream through the windows. Somewhere across town, Derek and Brandon were sitting in holding cells, their futures destroyed by their own cruelty. Somewhere in the city, Vanessa was making bail calls, her life in ruins for choosing greed over integrity. And here, in this elegant house that had been hiding in plain sight for months, 2 women who had saved each other were finally free. 3 months later, the courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when Rachel emerged from Derek's sentencing hearing. She kept her head down, ignoring the shouted questions, and walked to the car where Eleanor was waiting. 15 years, Rachel said as she slid into the passenger seat. No possibility of parole for 12. Eleanor nodded. Brandon got 12 years. Vanessa got 3 years of probation and 500 hours of community service. The judge said she'd serve time if she violated probation in any way. It's over then. Actually over. It's over, Eleanor confirmed. They drove in comfortable silence back to the house. In the 3 months since Derek's arrest, Rachel had filed for divorce, started therapy, and begun the process of rebuilding her life. The divorce had been finalized 2 weeks ago. Uncontested, just as Eleanor had predicted. Derek had nothing to fight for, and no resources to fight with. Rachel had also started her own architectural firm, Hartwell and Associates Design. Small for now, just her and 2 junior architects, but growing steadily. Her first project had been designing a luxury assisted living facility for Eleanor's foundation, a place where elderly people would be treated with dignity, respect, and genuine care. Eleanor had thrown herself back into business with renewed energy. She served on 3 boards, mentored young women in finance, and had started a foundation dedicated to elder abuse prevention and prosecution. The 2 women had become partners in multiple ventures. But more than that, they had become family. The real kind. The kind built on respect and trust, rather than blood and obligation. As they pulled into the driveway, Rachel noticed a for sale sign going up in the house across the street. New neighbors soon. Fresh starts all around. Inside, Eleanor headed to the kitchen to make tea while Rachel checked her email. There was a message from a potential client wanting to discuss a project, another from her therapist confirming their appointment, a third from a professional organization inviting her to speak at an upcoming conference. Her life was full, busy, hers. Eleanor returned with 2 cups of tea and settled into her favorite chair in the living room. I got an interesting call today from a woman who saw the news coverage of Derek's trial. She thinks her son is financially abusing her, but she can't prove it. She wanted to know if I could help. Rachel looked up from her laptop. What did you tell her? Eleanor's smile was sharp. I told her to document everything, install cameras if she needs to, protect herself legally, and that if she needs resources or support, my foundation has people who can help. You're going to make this your mission, aren't you? Helping other people in similar situations. Someone has to, Eleanor said. Elder abuse is epidemic, and most of it happens behind closed doors where no one can see. If my experience can help even one person protect themselves or expose an abuser, then the 6 months I spent pretending to be helpless will have been worth it. Rachel closed her laptop and picked up her tea. Do you ever regret it? The deception? The months of pretending? Eleanor considered the question carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my own sons proved to be the kind of people who would abuse a vulnerable parent. But do I regret exposing the truth? Never. The truth is the only foundation worth building on. Everything else is sand that shifts the moment pressure is applied. They sat together as the afternoon light faded to evening. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. Inside, 2 women who had walked through fire together were finally, genuinely at rest. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. The final property settlement had been processed. Derek's name had been officially removed from every document he'd fraudulently claimed to be on. He owned nothing. He was nothing. And Rachel owned herself completely for the first time in 6 years. 1 year later, the grand opening of Hartwell Sanctuary, the assisted living facility Rachel had designed and Eleanor had funded, was attended by over 200 people, city officials, medical professionals, social workers, and families of future residents filled the elegant common areas. Rachel stood at a podium, looking out at the crowd. This facility represents more than just architecture. It represents dignity. It represents the belief that our elderly deserve to be treated as the valuable, important people they are, not as burdens, not as problems, not as obstacles between greedy relatives and inheritance money. She paused, letting her words sink in. A year ago, I learned that my husband had been planning to let his mother die so he could inherit what he thought was her money. He saw her as expendable, useful only for what she could provide after death. He was wrong. She was valuable. She is valuable. And every person who will live here is valuable. We will treat them that way, always. The audience applauded. Eleanor, sitting in the front row looking elegant in a tailored suit, smiled with genuine pride. After the ceremony, Rachel found Eleanor on the terrace overlooking the facility's gardens. Thank you, Rachel said, for everything, for trusting me with this project, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. You earned every bit of that belief, Eleanor said. You took a nightmare and turned it into something beautiful, something that will help people for years to come. That takes strength, character, vision. I learned from the best, Rachel said. Eleanor laughed. Flattery, but I'll accept it. They stood together watching the sun set over the gardens Rachel had designed. Below them, families toured the facility. Elderly people smiled at the beautiful spaces, the thoughtful details, the clear message that they were valued and respected. Derek's up for his first parole hearing in 11 years, Eleanor said quietly. He'll be denied. The nature of his crimes, the lack of remorse he showed at trial, the victim impact statements. He's serving the full 15 years. Good, Rachel said. Brandon's already tried for early release twice, denied both times. Also good. And Vanessa? Eleanor smiled slightly. She violated probation 3 months ago, tried to leave the state without permission. She's serving 18 months now. Her professional license was permanently revoked. The system worked, Rachel observed. For once, Eleanor agreed, because we made sure it had everything it needed to work. Evidence, documentation, truth. Rachel's phone buzzed with a photo from her new boyfriend, a fellow architect she'd met at a professional conference 6 months ago. Someone who valued her mind, respected her work, and treated her like an equal partner. Someone who had no idea she'd once been married to a man who saw her as a walking paycheck. She showed Eleanor the photo. He wants to know if we're free for dinner Friday. Eleanor looked at the picture and smiled. He looks kind, is he? Very. Almost annoyingly so. He apologizes when he's 5 minutes late. He asks about my day and actually listens to the answer. He treats waitstaff with respect. He volunteers at a youth center on weekends. It's almost suspicious how decent he is. Some people are just genuinely good, Eleanor said. You deserve one of those people. After Derek, you deserve someone who sees your value. We both do, Rachel said. We both deserve to be surrounded by people who choose kindness over cruelty. As the sun set fully and the first stars appeared, the two women headed back inside the facility Rachel had built and Eleanor had funded, a facility that would house and protect people who deserved dignity in their final years. People like Eleanor had pretended to be, and people like Eleanor actually was. The irony was not lost on either of them. Final scene. On a warm Sunday afternoon, 2 years after Derek's arrest, Rachel and Eleanor sat in the garden of the house they now officially co-owned. Legal papers had been drawn up, making them partners in the property. Not landlord and tenant, not benefactor and charity case. Equal partners. Rachel's architectural firm had grown to 12 employees. Eleanor's foundation had helped prosecute 14 elder abuse cases and provided resources to hundreds of families. They were drinking iced tea that Eleanor had made, discussing the blueprints spread across the patio table for their third assisted living facility. This one would be in a lower-income area, subsidized by the foundation to serve families who couldn't afford luxury care. You know what I've been thinking about? Eleanor said, setting down her glass. What's that? Derek thought he was waiting for me to die, so he could inherit $300,000. That was his entire plan. Wait for me to die and collect a modest inheritance. And instead, he's in prison. Brandon's in prison. Vanessa's life is destroyed. And you and I are sitting here planning our third major charitable project, funded by a fortune they never knew existed. Eleanor laughed, the sound genuine and bright. If Derek had just been a decent human being, if he'd just shown me basic kindness and respect, he would have eventually inherited a significant portion of my actual estate. Not 300,000, millions. He would have been set for life. But he couldn't wait, Rachel said. He couldn't be patient or kind or decent. He had to scheme and manipulate and abuse. And in doing so, he guaranteed he'll get nothing. Ever. Eleanor raised her glass of iced tea. To Derek and Brandon. May they enjoy their prison cells and think about what they could have had if they'd just been good people. Rachel clinked her glass against Eleanor's. To us. For being smart enough to outsmart them. To family, Eleanor corrected gently. The kind we choose, not the kind we're born with. They drank together as the afternoon sun bathed the garden in golden light. Around them, the house that had hidden its elegance for so long now stood proud and beautiful, home to two women who had saved each other. In a prison 2 hours away, Derek Hartwell sat in a cell, finally understanding that his mother had never been the weak one in their relationship. And in the garden of a house he'd never actually owned, two women laughed together and planned a future built on truth, respect, and the radical idea that people should be valued for who they are, not what they can provide. The end of one story, the beginning of another. And justice, finally, fully served. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.